talking about Disney movies.
What are you guys talking about?
Anthony can lead into it. Anthony can go back. We're talking about Treasure Planet initially is what we were talking about.
The brightest day. Where are the heroes? Soon as they get here, everything will be alright. I need a hero. Someone superhuman who can come and save my life.
I feel was a big budget movie that they intentionally kind of tanked, if you look into the history of it. And then we were just talking about Tangled, which cost $260 million to make, and it went over like 6 years. And it might even be a lot higher than that. Of course, these are like reported numbers.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the idea that it's one of the most expensive movies ever made, even though it's an animated feature from Disney.
Right. But what we were talking about was the fact that what they developed in making that movie, the animation process
Right, it's going to pay off down
Right.
the road. And Tangled probably, I don't know how much they, like, look at the Tangled box office, right? Like, how much did it make? Because they did make more Tangled, right? They did the Tangled 2, and
they did, and those characters are in the parks, and they're all
their money.
Yeah.
$600 million.
Yeah, they
$592.6.
they still made their money and doubled it. Right, exactly.
Yeah, so-
But like what I was saying was I've kind of felt like for a while that these live action remakes of the Disney animated movies were really only to develop their technology, right? To just further their filmmaking process.
Now you can use it in the television shows, right?
Yes,
Like,
exactly.
I mean, Mandalorian developed a whole bunch of new tech that no one had ever seen before, but at the same time, so did the Jungle Book, right?
Correct.
Like, you can interact with this fake snake.
And
stuff like
the
that.
Jungle Book was not a good movie, I don't think. Like it was okay to watch like once, but I don't think it was that. Like I'm talking about the new one, not the classic.
Not the animation.
No, the classic one is obviously great, but the newer one, the live action one is.
Yeah.
It's just okay, you know what I mean. But I think it's again, it was like a sacrifice in a way because it was a way for them to develop
The tech.
the tech.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And then, the snake in Star Wars is going to look really good.
Yeah, by the time we get to that, right, exactly. And then by the time that we do, Reed Richards and his
Stretchy.
right,
It should look
exactly.
really good.
It should look really good, but we just used it on. And the thing is, it makes sense to do it on a movie like The Jungle Book or Lion King because people are going to go see that because it's a legacy
Movie.
property, right? They're gonna be curious. They might walk out of there and say, that could have been better or whatever. But guess what? They already spent their money.
And the other thing too is, it's like you said, the Lion King. It has those songs. It did have Beyonce, right? So it's like
It's all built in.
Seth Rogen, Beyonce. It has like the draw, the pull.
You can't ruin
anyway.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but again, it's just another animated version of an animated film.
Let me ask you something. Do you think that story is being sacrificed, or since the story has already been written, like the portrayal of the story, taking time to make it right, is being sacrificed for the fact that they're trying to perfect this technology?
So I think that there's something to that, but I think in this case, that's not the concern. The concern is developing the tech ultimately, then to later make a story that
Can utilize the tech.
that the developed version of that technology that's really good can, you know what I mean, is befitting the story they're trying to tell later on. Now, in the meantime, that meant that they made a slew of movies that were maybe uninspired or obvious choices. They're like, of course, here's another remake, blah, 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 blah. So maybe 5 years of that. But now after that, hopefully the idea is that then there's a stretch of really great movies that benefit from that tech. But I mean,
What do you think is an example of that from the past?
Well, I think we were talking about the Jungle Book, and we were
Well,
talking
I'm
about
talking
like,
more
Lion
past,
King.
like from the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s,
Oh.
all the technology that they used to develop that later benefited.
Well, if you go to the
movies down the
70s,
line.
there was a lot of creative things that happened on, say, Star Wars, right? So,
right.
and all that stuff kind of got replicated and used again until computers. Right?
True.
'Cause you look at like all the stormtroopers when Darth Vader comes out, it's like that's a painting, right? They're just painted on the cell.
Right, yeah. But it's even like what you were just saying earlier about, we were talking about how this whole conversation kicked off. You were talking about Treasure Planet.
Yeah.
And how that was that interesting mix of traditional
Computer.
animation.
Traditional.
Yeah, right. And so it was almost like, okay, let's see what the audience thinks of this, because you have both literally side by side. What's the audience reacting to?
Right.
And then from there is what they chose, is, as we've seen, what Tangled and Frozen and all that eventually developed into. And even some of that is true of Pixar. Some of that stuff is just them. I mean, Pixar, I mean, had the benefit of also making really great original stories, but you can see that evolution of their animation
Their process,
process.
too.
You just watch those Toy Story movies alone,
Mhm.
and the later ones look way different than the
The first,
first one. Especially, what the biggest thing that Pixar really, the biggest evolution of Pixar is how human characters looked. I mean, the truth is, you never saw an adult, I think,
not in Toy Story.
because they couldn't do it. I think that's probably why you didn't see an
It's
adult.
Uncanny Valley, kind of
Yes.
like what's the Tom Hanks Christmas movie, uh, Christmas Express movie, the
Polar Express.
Polar Express.
Yeah, right.
They, even though it is real people, somewhat animated through the computer, they don't look right. They don't look real. They don't
That's
look,
a hard movie
they look
to
off.
watch. That's a hard movie to watch now. Like, I've tried to sit through it, and I'm like, this is really creepy. And whereas at that time, it looked cool. It looked, to me, it did. I thought, because it sort of looked like almost like the paintings in the storybook.
Right.
But now
It's
it's
just
just
trying to capture, right? Like,
yeah. Now it just looks outdated.
So.
Do you think they should start making 2D again?
Oh, 2D animation.
Yeah.
Oh, I'd love that. I would absolutely love it. I don't know if they will.
Yeah, I think certain things can take advantage of it.
Yeah.
and
What's interesting is
probably
that
be better.
there's a lot of animation that it looks like 2D, but it's still three. You know what I mean? It's still 3D animated. It's still digitally
It's
animated.
digitally animated.
Mm.
Yeah. There's been a lot of shows like that. Even like the more recent Mickey Mouse cartoons. Those are all computer generated, but they look like
Trying to make it look like an old
cartoon. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No.
Where are the heroes?